Hello and welcome to today's Africam Show, brought to you by Explore. And my name behind the voice is Taylor McCurdy, and I'm looking forward to chatting you all today. And remember, this is absolutely live, so please send through all of your questions. And something, of course, that I better not forget is that it is World Animal Day. So perhaps to get the chit chat going, I'd love to hear from all of you who have been watching all the different waterhole cameras. So maybe send through one of your favorite moments over the past little while, of course, pertaining to wildlife. But right now we are looking at a handful of waterbuck just grazing on the very short crop grasses along the Olifants River. They look very happy with life at the moment. You can actually even see how windy it is. I've been standing outside and enjoying the wind all day long because it's been incredibly warm. So I bet that the animals are also enjoying the reprieve for, it was about, I think it was like 34, 35 degrees Celsius today. So yeah, Rolling Trube, you said hello from Washington. Gemma, you're from New Jersey and it's a rainy day there. Yeah, complete opposite weather that we're having in sunny South Africa. Barring the wind, but like I said, it definitely is much needed. Jan Powers, yay! I hope you're saying yay to me, Jan, but you're saying hello all the way from Arizona. Gemma, maybe you can tell me what your favorite moment on the Africam Show has been with the wildlife, seeing as though it is World Animal Day. It's actually looking a bit dire along the, not the Baluli River, it's in Baluli Game Reserve, along the Olifants River, as you can see. But it's quite typical for the grass and other vegetation to be completely grazed down all the way to next to nothing at this time of the year, as we are anticipating the rainy season. And I really think that it's going to come sooner this year. The clouds are already starting to build and the temperature is just soaring through the roof. It feels like it's like we should be at the end of October already. Andy, a good afternoon to you too. I hope that you enjoy the show this afternoon. Well, I always forget, obviously on a different part of the world, I never know what the time difference is. I'm sure you'll forget me. Not forget me, forgive me. Goodness, I can't English. I'm going to blame the heat and perhaps a slight dehydration. So it just looks like two female waterbucks that are grazing away. I'd be a little bit nervous grazing so close to the river's edge. Mainly because of crocodiles, but I suppose those crocodiles are going to have to launch themselves a fair amount out of the water, so maybe that's not too much of a bother. And it doesn't seem to be too much vegetation surrounding them, so it could be quite difficult for a sneaky lion of some sorts to try and catch him. But the one waterbuck on the left seems to be a little bit more observant than the female on the right, who's just got her head down and not letting up on that delicious grass. And then of course you can hear, if you listen very quietly, or if I give you a chance to listen, you can even hear a ringneck dove calling in the background. Oh my goodness, Bob, you're from Kalamazoo. I don't think I've ever said that. Kalamazoo, sorry, I don't think I've ever heard of that place before. I'm going to have to definitely do some Googling, which is no, it is Kalamazoo. That's very cool. Please tell me where you're from, Bob. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty worldly, but there's just some places that I have never heard of before. But it's looking a little bit on the quiet side. But soon, like I said, the rain is going to come and then this river is going to be so full. It'll be exciting to see for those of you that have not experienced the full force of the mighty Olifants River. It is quite spectacular. John, you've said that Monty the Python was one of my favorites. That was at Rosie's Pan. I bet that was a lot of fun. I'm so sorry, I unfortunately did not get to see that. But I'm wondering, did Monty the Python like enter the water? Did it go for a little bit of a swim? Did it just slither around the edge? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, John. That'd be quite great. And now we are at the Tau camera, also looking quite dry. This is all the way up in Madikwe, right on the border of South Africa and Botswana. And I actually drove through there a couple of months ago. Not through Madikwe itself, but I was on my way to Botswana, and we kind of went through Zeerust and Mariko, which are the two towns close to that area. The zebra's not hanging around very long to have a drink. I think they're skedaddling off. And there's a couple of pockets of greenery over there, but not grass, probably some kind of water vegetation. Whether or not it is invasive, I'm not 100% sure. It's a bit difficult to identify those water plants from here, but sadly there are so many invasive plant species. Oh, okay, we got an update from John. Monty the Python used to catch birds on a branch. That's quite spectacular. Snake on a stick? That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Look at the elephants coming through now. Right, this might be the winning camera this afternoon. All the elephants nicely grouped together. It already looks like they've had a bit of a splash somewhere, as we've got pied elephants this afternoon. Not quite, or is it just shadows? No, it looks like they've sprayed themselves a little bit. Yeah, pied elephants that we've got here, which is a subspecies of the African elephant. No, I'm just joking, the savanna elephant. That's complete nonsense, of course. But it is quite funny. Are you not going to stop to have a drink? Not even a little bit. Come on, quench your thirst a second time. It's so dry about at the moment that, you know, it's not uncommon for the elephants to drink a couple of times a day when there is an opportunity. And, you know, Madikwe can be quite dry. I've never spent much time in that reserve, but at some point I'm sure I'll go up there and have a lot of fun. Ooh, Gigi, this is a great question. You've asked if I have a favorite elephant sighting for World Animal Day. Oh my goodness, I'm so fortunate to have had some extremely good elephant sightings in my life. And I think, gosh, I have to try and think back of one. You know, probably some of my favorite moments with elephants is from a few years ago when I was working down in the southern Sabi Sands with a big elephant bull, and we nicknamed him Daryl. Some of you have maybe heard me tell this story before, but he was a funny character. He had a bell shape cut out in one of his ears. Not that anybody cut that out, but quite often when they get nicks or tears in their ears, they do form interesting sort of scars. And this one looked like a bell, or some people said a Snapchat symbol. Not that I really know what that looks like. And he would just come through the camps all the time, but he spent a lot of time in the staff accommodation, which was wonderful. And he would, oh goodness, he would stand under where we'd park the cars, so the carport for nice shade, and then my room was right near the swimming pool. And yes, we were fortunate enough to have a swimming pool in our staff accommodation. It was much enjoyed. And he would quite often drink from the swimming pool. A lot cleaner water than what you're seeing here. I know some of you are probably going to be worried about, what about the chemicals? You don't have to worry about them too much. They don't drink enough of it and consistently that it would necessarily make them ill. Also, elephants are quite pedantic about water. So he wouldn't necessarily drink from it every day. He'd definitely come and splash around in it. And he'd also stand outside my window and ting his tusk on the window. I don't know why he would do that, but he was a fun elephant. So most of the herd seems to be moving off. There's just one individual that stopped to have a little sniff on the ground on the right-hand side. Is it a female? No, I can't even tell. It's hard to tell. It is a female. Definitely is a girl. She'll catch up in a moment. Something has caught her attention there. But there are, in fact, a few more Ellies enjoying a drink. Oh, Gemma, you said that today that you were watching over 40 buffalo on the cameras. That's spectacular. That's a nice group of buffalo to see. Sally, you're enjoying seeing the little elephants. It is. None of them splashing around, though. Everybody seems to be, it's almost quite businesslike, right? We've got to come and drink water. You can have 2 trunkfuls and spray it over yourself, and then everybody must leave. That's it. I don't know if they have time slots that they have to come through and drink. It's quite funny how sometimes it's very coordinated around a waterhole. You don't want to have too much crowding, though. And then Mary M, here's an interesting one. Do elephants ever live by themselves? Well, so elephants are incredibly sociable animals, and when you're a female, you will typically live in a family group. You don't always leave your family group. I'm sure there's a bunch of exceptions to this case, but for the most part, they will stay together, and then their daughters will stay within the herd too. And it's the males that kind of move out. So, you know, young bulls, I think they crave that socialization. They need to be with other elephants because that's where they've spent most of their life. And as the bulls start to get much older, then then they kind of enjoy their own company. Well, there's something quite interesting that happened here. It was just all of a sudden everybody sort of got, but not startled. It looks like there might be a young bull that's harassing the herd, and they've all moved away from the water's edge and are quite swiftly moving in the opposite direction now. And that's quite typical to see around a waterhole, is that you're going to get more than one family group. And they don't always want to socialize with one another. They might greet each other. They might not be so friendly towards one another. Oh, here we go. Here come. Is that another bull? Is it? Sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell. No, that one's got memory glands by the looks of it, unless I'm seeing things. And they cause all sorts of havoc here. They want to greet everybody, but not everybody wants to greet them. And they kind of get the cold shoulder, and for the most part, the females will just leave. But it's a good place to interact with one another. And elephants are so intelligent that they are able to remember not just the elephants in their herd, but other elephants that they come across as well, which I think is lovely. Oh, JJ, I'm just trying to think where I think the best place to see elephants on safari is. So it actually depends, because in South Africa, you can have some great sightings at lots of different reserves, whether it's on an enclosed reserve, for example, like Madikwe, or perhaps in one of the reserves within the Greater Kruger, so big open ecosystems. They're all spectacular areas. Madikwe's got a crazy amount of elephants. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've got over 1,000 elephants here. So I reckon you'd have good sightings here. But of course, there's other places to travel to. If you want to, my personal favorite place to view elephants is in the Lower Zambezi Valley ecosystem. So Mana Pools in Zimbabwe is fantastic, and so is the Lower Zambezi National Park in Zambia, because you've got these big winterthorn trees that line the forest, so the vegetation is very different from what we're looking at right now. And to see elephants standing up on their back legs, which they typically will do, is quite spectacular. Right, everybody wave to the safari vehicle. No, I'm just joking, they won't see us. I wonder if they know that they're being watched. So we do some people watching, rather. Now, this is where I wish I had a pair of binoculars so I could see what everyone was doing. Is that one? Someone wearing purple? It's a nice color. Stands out too. Looks nice. Not that you really have to worry about what you wear on a vehicle anyways. Gigi, no, I've never been to an elephant orphanage before, but there is one in Zambia, and I would really love to go to the David Sheldrick Elephant Trust in Kenya. It's not a place that I've been yet, and I just keep missing the opportunity. But I'd love to go and see that. I'm not a huge fan of having to interact with animals. I just enjoy the work that they are doing. I mean, it's pretty meaningful work, but I'm not really interested in necessarily feeding any of the elephants or that type of thing. I don't need to be super hands-on, but it would still be a great thing to go and see. It would be really, really nice. Yeah, Sally, I agree. It is nice to see them roam free and not confined. You know, in the case with Madikwe, this area is so enormous. It's about 75,000 hectares. So what's that? Probably close to, excuse my maths, 180,000 acres, maybe a bit less, maybe about 165,000 acres. So it's quite a big space for them. So it's not like they're, too enclosed. It would be difficult to spot a fence line, I think, when you're on safari in Madikwe. John, you've said black and white, the elephants are playing chess. Yeah, especially right at the moment where you've got the elephants that are darkened from being covered in water versus the elephants on the right. Let's see who's going to make the first move. Who's the pawn? I suppose the matriarch would then be the queen. Oh, the king. We might not have a king. It might have to be a roaming bull. But let's see what the interaction is like here, because I suspect that this is two different groups. Let's see if there's any chatting. Yep, there is. This is quite typical for an elephant to go over and put its trunk over the top of another elephant's head. That's a nice sort of way. You can see it seems to be quite pleasant for the moment. Maybe this herd, I suspect with the elephants on Madikwe that they have all come across one another at some point. I also think that there's a lot of the times they don't necessarily see the other herds for a long period of time, but they seem quite comfortable with one another. It might even be the same herd, but just the way that they sort of walked over suggests that it might just be a smaller family. Is this where the dust bathing happens? There's quite a sort of white substance that's in the soil. I'm not sure if there is a lot of limestone around in Madikwe. To be honest, I'm not too familiar with the geology of Madikwe, but normally we see lots and lots of white like that. It could be an indication of limestone, but it makes for very dramatic elephants. It's kind of like what you see in images from Namibia in Etosha of the white elephants. You can also hear some flies buzzing around the camera. They all stopped. Yeah, it looks like the darker group of elephants has said their hellos and are now moving off. Goodness, I just want to swat that fly. Get out of here. We're trying to do a show. Pesky things at the moment. There's one little elephant that looked like it got too comfortable in the middle of the herd and then panicked to join, whether it's an older sibling or just a cousin of some kind. And now they're sort of moving off. Just a quick hello, the general niceties, and off they go. JJ, this is an interesting one about, sorry, I've said interesting one because I just find all your questions very fascinating. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Elephant contraception and how it keeps numbers down. It's really interesting. I understand why some reserves do it in order to keep elephant numbers down. And I know but a lot of people keep talking about how there's an overpopulation of elephants in South Africa. And yes, this might be the case, but it's not because, the elephant numbers are too high. It's just because there's just not much wild space left for them to sort of roam in. That's very, very restricted from how they normally would have been moving around. So, we kind of have to do this. It's a really difficult thing, humans interacting with wildlife. And obviously people put fences around some of these reserves for the protection of the wildlife. And there is a huge movement to try and restore old farms back to natural vegetation. So people are definitely trying. So the complications that can come with contraception, though, I've heard of some vets have told me that they pulled elephants off of contraceptives and then some damage has been done and they aren't able to reproduce again for a number of years later. And not just the normal, anywhere between 3 and 5 years, the gestation interval, which typically elephants will have, but sometimes, like 10 years later. And I know there's one reserve that I spent a little bit of time on it, and there was a huge bull. He's beautiful. He's got enormous tusks, and they put him on a contraceptive. And they don't know. They're still waiting, but I think it's been about 6 or 7 years now, and there's still not been any new elephants born on the property. There are younger bulls, but this bull is the big dominant bull, so he's really taking charge. And that, to me, makes me quite sad because he's got fantastic genetics. And it's not common for elephants in South Africa to have extraordinary tusks anymore. So, yeah, it's a tough one. It's kind of the lesser of two evils. I understand why they have to do it, but I don't also necessarily agree with it. But I think we as guides find ourselves saying that quite a bit. Mindy, you are so sweet. And I hope you have the best day ever. Saying that you are happy to hear my voice again. I find it quite annoying. I just listened to a voice note from myself by mistake. I accidentally pressed play and I almost died. And I thought that surely that's not what I sound like. But anyways, apparently it is. So I don't really like the sound of my own voice. And off they go, moving again. Come on, elephants. Come on, little one. Go and splish and splash around in the water. You know you want to. We'd love to see that. We'd definitely make everybody's day. But I mean, I've had so many, like I said, I've had so many elephant sightings. I could sit here and talk for the next 10 days about elephants and how wonderful they are. But all animals are wonderful. And something that I obviously love to do is to spread the word about the lesser appreciated animals like amphibians and various insects or anything that belongs to arthropods. There's quite a few birds there too. They're underrated as well, although I feel like there are more people out in the world that appreciate birds than insects. I do not appreciate flies. I can't even tell you what they are. Are there some black-winged stilts there? There's Egyptian geese. I don't know if that is a spur-winged goose. It's big and dark. Or is it a white-faced whistling duck maybe? I keep wanting to look through my binoculars, which is quite entertaining. There are black-winged stilts. Just getting some confirmation. Oh, apparently they've just laid some eggs, the black-winged stilts. That's nice. Probably won't be able to see the eggs, as I suspect they'll be very camouflaged. That's actually a nest that I have never seen. Most guides have found a blacksmith lapwing nest or a three-banded plover nest or a spotted thickney, something along those lines, some of the other birds that nest on the ground. But I have never seen, the eggs of a black-winged stilt. What is this elephant doing? You're going to go into that little cave there? Probably not. You wouldn't fit. It's funny how they just choose the most random place to climb up and down. Very soothing calls of all the birds, though. Just a little soft chitter-chatter. I'm sorry that I'm not identifying all of the birds for you. Is that a crow? Might be a pied crow that I can see in the distance as off to the left. All sorts of things roaming around here. In Tanzania, in a place called Nyerere. No, you don't say it like that. You say Nyerere National Park. It's formerly known as the Selous Game Reserve. And I've never seen so many birds in my entire life in the lakes. It was quite spectacular. I was blown away, and I'm not the biggest fan of birds. Right, what have we got going on now? Ooh, a water buck. We're back on the Olifants. What are you looking at? Young male water buck. Also just gazing off into the distance. I'm sitting inside wishing that I was in that breeze. But you can't have everything. Also just got his head down, nibbling away. I'm surprised we haven't seen any terrapins, just sort of out on the water's edge, sunning themselves. Although, to be fair, all of those pebbles there could be terrapins, and I could just maybe not tell the difference. Oh, so there's a little bit of vegetation up at the back. That's a good place for things to hide. Oh, it looks like they've actually... Am I going crazy, or does it look like they've been burning there? Or am I completely making that up? Is that a shadow? No, it's maybe just a shadow. Never mind. But they have started burning. The controlled burns in a lot of the greater Kruger at the moment. This is sort of the time, but that's not the case at all. Ooh. Oh, my goodness. Are these the black-winged stilts? That's amazing. I mean, I can hear the blacksmith lapwings in the background. I have never in my entire life seen the nest of a black-winged stilt anyways. I wouldn't have even known where to look. I mean, I would have had some idea, but yowza, that's quite spectacular. So it's quite difficult to see. They obviously make it just a very little sort of shallow nest, very inconspicuous. And I wish you good luck, little stilt. Not easy to raise eggs, especially right at the edge of a water source of some kind, because of all the traffic of animals that's around at the moment. Gigi, my favorite bird to watch is black herons. They're hilarious. Oh no, what are they called now? Are they called black egrets? I always forget which one's which. They're black, no, they're black herons now. I don't know. Forgive me. So the umbrella birds, nighttime, daytime, and I'm sure you've all seen that really hilarious viral video. So they're quite fascinating to watch. I actually have a pair of brown-hooded kingfishers. Brown-hooded kingfishers, yeah, two of them, obviously a pair, and I see them every day. I don't know where they're living though, but I haven't quite figured that out just yet. But I see them on the fence post and in the trees and catching all insects every single day. So that's quite nice. And then I quite frequently, so I spend quite a bit of time watching them. And then every other day there's a southern black tit that flies into the house, and I don't know why. And it's normally in the evening. So I'm not sure what's chasing or disturbing it after it should have roosted. And then I have to try and get it outside. Maybe it just wants to come in and keep me company. That's also fine. That is not a problem at all. But look at how long those legs are of the stilt. You can see they look like they bend so awkwardly. It almost looks like that bird is laying upside down, like the white part is turned the wrong way around. Obviously, that's not the case at all. But they'll be spending quite a bit of time there, making sure that everything is a-okay. I wonder if they are as protective as, for example, blacksmith lapwings. I've seen, I think a lot of you who've watched the cameras for long enough, you would have seen how protective blacksmith lapwings are. And also water thickneys are another bird species that I've literally seen stop a buffalo in its tracks, and not just one buffalo, an entire herd of buffalo from approaching a water hole, or at least the one section of the water hole, and trampling the eggs. The pair of them stood their wings open, squawking away like you cannot believe, and they just, yeah. The buffalo then changed direction slightly and went and drank at other parts of the dam. So it's truly spectacular how animals of such a small size can stand up to, well, goodness, animals that are hundreds of times bigger than what they are. It's not always a bad thing to have a loud voice. Not too much going on at the moment. I see a few dragonflies buzzing about. Back at the waterbuck. Oh, they're in the water now. Look at that. This is how you think you typically see waterbuck. In South Africa, yes, especially in the Lowveld region, although you see them out, grazing in open clearings or vegetation lining the rivers. And then, of course, when the river is shallow enough like this, and there's not too much of a threat, they can see any threats coming towards them. They'll quite happily submerge themselves, but get their feet wet. But for the most part, waterbuck actually prefer marshy areas. And if you go up to East Africa and you go into Kenya in the Mara ecosystem and you find the big wetland areas, you'll see the waterbuck spending pretty much all day, every day, and they're just munching on the vegetation. Not much for them to eat at the moment in the middle of the rivers. In Zambia, I have also seen waterbucks swimming across the Zambezi River to the islands that will often have tall reeds on them. And for the most part, that is the only thing that they'll have to eat at that time of the year, because no one really wants to move too far away from the permanent source of water in extreme temperatures. Got to drink every single day. And I suppose it also helps keep you nice and cool. I can only imagine how refreshing that must feel. Mary M, yes, crocodiles, of course, can attack them. This water is very shallow, though. So even though you can have crocodile-infested waters, if it is not murky and it is quite shallow, then the element of surprise is no longer there. And that's really what crocodiles rely on. Yes, they can move exceptionally fast, but it's, they're not going to charge out from a sandbank charging towards the waterbuck. I'm not to say that it doesn't happen, it's just highly unlikely. So these waterbuck are pretty safe, I would say. Oh, not going to stick around these waterbuck. I think they're going to make a move slowly just because that big male is being a bit of an annoyance. Right. Thank you so much for joining in on the Africam Show today. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I have most certainly loved it. And for those of you that did share your moments, or your favorite moments of World Animal Day, thank you so much. Keep sharing them. And of course, this is not the end. Well, it is the end for today, but join us on a Thursday for Wild Moments. It'll be Ali and I. So we will see you then, and have a wonderful week.